1.
Good morning, everybody. Once again, I'm out of town on the day of the Ellermeyer Connect group, which I always love to be at and listen to what everybody's saying. But I'm far, far away in Minneapolis. Not very international, but anyway, it's good to be with you again remotely. So again, today I'm going to give you an update on current global business and economic trends. Once again, a rather eclectic look at what's going on. As you can see from these agenda items, we're kind of all over the place, but we just put out our 87th biweekly Global Business Update newsletter yesterday, Tuesday. And so this is from that most recent newsletter. So an interesting chart from the Financial Times, the average annual producer price inflation turned negative in the Eurozone, that is the European Union countries that use the euro, for the first time in a couple of years. This is a really major change. Notice that it was up as much as an annual change of 40% back in mid-2022, and it's now negative for the first time in quite a while. This is a very positive thing for the European Union countries. Now, this chart is really kind of disturbing to me. I came across this in a McKinsey study. On the left, this, by the way, are the largest extra-regional trading partners. In other words, trading partners in Latin America that are not in the region. Back in 2000, the U.S. was the largest extra-regional trading partner for a large amount of Latin America, most of it. Just a year or so later, China became the largest extra-regional trading partner. This is not good for U.S. Business, and it's a little bit scary on the political front also. Look how fast it changed from the U.S. being the primary trading partner outside the region to China. That will have long-term implications for American brands. This is an interesting chart that came from Canada and the US, but in the Globe and Mail publication in Toronto. Factory construction investment. Now, Canada has been going along fairly stable, up slightly, but look what has happened to the US since 21. Of course, this has to do with the bills that were passed through Congress to incentivize companies to build factories in the United States. This is a really amazing result that you can see here. In just a couple of years, the index of spending, with 100 being January 2013, we're now 2.5 times that in factory spending, which is reshoring and nearshoring back into our country with manufacturing. Now, this one came out of Canada also, and this is really strange. This is population growth, average annual change in total population. You notice that the US had a slight drop of about 0.25%, and then now it's back up at an annual growth rate of about 0.5%, about 0.5%. But look what happened to Canada. In 1 year, up 3%, which is 1 million people, because they had about 37 million people. Now, why is that important? That is because Canada has a very proactive policy of seeking people to immigrate, people with good backgrounds in education and business. And they are just passing us by these days because they're very open to that, and we're not. This is the headline consumer price year-on-year change from 1 year to another. You notice that from 21, how inflation went up strongly in a lot of places. UK is still running at about 7.8%, Eurozone on average about 5.5%, US down to 3, dramatic change. What's really interesting is this is the first time Japan has had a higher inflation than the United States in over 20 years. Japan has been very low inflation for a very long time and is now up higher. Japan actually needs inflation. Now, we always hear about people saying, when is China going to overtake the United States? Well, probably not financially, by the way, but this is GDP per capita. And right now we're sitting at about 76, 77,000 US dollars in the US, above the average of high income countries. China down at about 22,000, slightly above the middle income average. When I first went to China with ARCO to live there in late 82, way back here, the GDP per capita was $100 US. Today it's around 22,000, but way below us. Of course, they've got a few more people than we do. Speaking of China, China's recovery from COVID is not going well at all. This is year-over-year change in retail sales. And they went through a downtime during COVID, came back up, went down again, came out of COVID, and we're going back up, and now it's dropping again. The consumer is not spending in China right now, and that is a big challenge for all kinds of businesses there. My last chart before the cartoon is from the Sunday Times of London. It's average paid, full paid days working from home per week by country this spring. Notice that Canada has almost 2 days a week paid. What is going on here? Employees want 2.5. UK about 1.5. US about 1.5. And then you can see that other countries much less. As you get into Europe, you find very few paid days per week, but a lot desired. So I think that's kind of an interesting statistic to see what people are actually getting this paid and what they actually want. Now, this cartoon, China is a puzzle. That's obvious by looking at the map. The map by outline, by the way, is the provinces of China. This is a map. This is a cartoon I had years ago, and it continues to be a challenge. China will always be a puzzle. So I'm going to stop there, and I thank you for